stage in the past. Who remembers seeing Michael at SOS Calgary? A few of you? Okay, great. There's only been a few of you, so you guys are really in for a treat. Now, Michael Moll has also been on my podcast, The Everyday Millionaire. And so most of these speakers have been on the podcast, and if you want to learn a little bit more about the speakers, please go to the Everyday Millionaire podcast, listen to these interviews, because we go, it's really about who they are and their journey to get to where they are today. Michael Moll shares a lot about his journey into the future of real estate investing in his business that he co-ventured with his partners called REITIUM. Now, REITIUM truly is the future of investing in real estate. And Michael's a great speaker, he's an entertaining speaker, he's brilliantly smart in what they created in REITIUM. And today, we're really honored to have him on the stage to share with you the future of real estate. Without any further delay, Mr. Michael Moll, ladies and gentlemen. Good to have you, Michael.
It's great to be here. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody, for being here this morning. I'm super excited to share with you what we've been working on for the future of real estate. This REIN is our favorite community. We learn so much here. We are technologists and real estate people on our team, but really the core of this whole thing is about education. If we can bring up the education level, the general population of landlords, and places like REIN are really doing that, then we're going to have a better entrepreneurial spirit in the real estate market. More people will make money, there'll be more wealth in this country. We're going to do our part by servicing this industry, and that's really where it comes from. That's really why we work so hard every day and night, to build great technology, to work with great partners, so for the betterment of Canada, and then eventually taking our technology around the world. So that's me. I'm the Chief Technology Officer at REITIUM. I came from Kenya 10 years ago on a scholarship to study at the University of British Columbia. Loved Canada, decided to stay, got married, the rest is history. But enough about me. Let's talk about our platform. Let's talk about the future of real estate. So there's a shared dream out there, and that dream is, how do you own a global portfolio of real estate? There's so many amazing cities, amazing assets around the world that are yielding well, that have great growth potential. And if you talked about 500 years ago, even 100 years ago, even 50 years ago, the only people who really owned a global portfolio of real estate might have been the Queen, maybe some really, really major kind of companies. And that was because of the sheer admin and infrastructure it took to do this. Fast forward to today, we have amazing technologies at our fingertips. There are 4 billion smartphones out there, greater than what the technology we took the first men to the moon. And we can reach people now. You heard amazing talks all weekend about the power of technology, marketing, etc. We're going to talk about the power of technology even in transacting real estate, and more specifically, real estate as an investment. There's also another dream, the dream of raising money from a global pool of investors, seamlessly, efficient, and in a way that's 100% compliant with securities regulation. And we see this will spur the next generation of issuers, or allow issuers to do even more, and developers with that capital. And we're so excited to be a part of this, but we know that if anyone's a Game of Thrones fan, there's major barriers to this dream. But that doesn't stop us, because we know we can break through, and we know what we've seen so far has really spurred us forward. So I'm actually going to detour, because when we talk about the ability to own real estate globally, we even have to talk about the ability of millennials, maybe seniors, who can't even get that first door. And then we talk about not being able to save up for that down payment, maybe qualifying for a mortgage, etc. And so what are people doing with their money? Because there is money out there, and it's just maybe not being pooled in the right way. So these sneakers are the Adidas Chinese New Year edition. They retail for $130. But there's a massive market for reselling sneakers. These sneakers resell for $1,900 minimum. And this is mind-blowing. And so now people are saying, hey, this looks kind of like an asset. So it's not just one sneaker. As you can see here, If you look over here, you have the Adidas, you have all these sneakers. That's the original price to resale within the same year. And so there are all these markets coming out where people think, oh, okay, maybe there's other ways that I can make money. Maybe I can't get a hold of real estate. What else is out there? And making money in sneakers is just like real estate. You buy, you hold, you sell. Now the only difference is with markets like this, you can't improve them, you can't make money while you hold them, and obviously still real estate is still the greatest asset class in the world in my opinion personally. But then you start looking at the behavior that young people are doing. This activity has become so prevalent that if you see here, this site claims to be the stock market of things. And you can actually have a portfolio of things. And it's mad. And when you think about what the value of this is a $2 billion market. And what does this tell you? People have money, people want to do things with those money, people want to invest. And these are people who have, they're not smart investors, they're not qualified investors, but that activity is going on. So how do we support this? How do we get people into better investments, better assets? Let's talk about cryptocurrency. So whatever you think about cryptocurrency as an investment, and I actually think about cryptocurrency just as a great PayPal on steroids. It's a great way of moving money around the world that is cheap, efficient, effective, and all those things. I don't think because of those swings in prices, I don't believe in it as an investment personally. Now, 40 million people did. In 3 years, 40 million people, and a lot of these people being young people, got into cryptocurrency as an investment, and why? Because of the ease of access. Anyone could do it anywhere on a mobile phone. You could then sell to anybody else. It created a global phenomenon. And on top of that, it was something that they could go in and say, hey, this is like a stock. I understand this. I'm already selling sneakers, right? And so they go on to the next thing. So you might ask me, this is a detour. What does it all mean? People want assets. They hunger for it. It's something that we can see. You want to get your personal liabilities to be lower than your personal assets. The only problem is the greatest asset class in the world, real estate, is still out of the hands of billions of people around the world. But until now, there's actually a great industry of crowdfunding through the exempt market and not that will allow more people to participate in this. So that's the opportunity there. Real estate is $280 trillion. When we think about what's happening in the world, this value is only going to increase. When we think about the global middle class, 150 million people being added every 2 years. Massive, massive opportunity. But back to those barriers. Still major barriers to get over. Capital requirements, compliance, access. So when we see the power of crowdfunding, when we see what it did when people went into things like Kickstarter, now we're talking about equity and debt crowdfunding, where people can actually put their money, whether they have $100, whether they have $500, and they can group with people. And because we have the internet, you can be part of a group of people who are not in the same country, they don't even have to speak the same language, they may not even have the same political values, but they can come together and they can really make an impact. And this isn't new. And so I'm going to take you on a bit of a trip when we think about how much money is out there. So Deloitte estimates there's $1 trillion of sleeping capital with millennials, seniors, people in the developing world. And this is the grossest overestimation because their numbers extrapolate from $540 billion being held by 90 million American millennials, right? So they're saying the other 500 billion is from everyone else. And so obviously these millennials are eating a lot of avocado toast. And they're buying a lot of sneakers, right? And we gotta save them from those weak assets. So I'm gonna take you on a history trip because I think it's very, very important to think about when did crowdfunding really, really take off? And when was it very, very effective? So let's go back. I'm gonna take you back to the 1400s. We're gonna go to Europe. We're gonna look at a tiny country called the Netherlands. It was a colony of Spain. Got its independence. We're like, okay, we're pretty broke. But there are these things called spices, and they're worth twice their weight in gold, but they're halfway across the world. We can build pretty decent ships, we're not that good. We don't have a lot of stuff to risk right now, so how do we get into this spice game? How do we really go in there? When you think about it, these journeys are so crazy. There was no Suez Canal, you had to go from Europe all the way down underneath the Cape of Good Hope at the bottom of Africa and go. 1 in 3 ships wouldn't make it. So even if you and your buddies wanted to pool your money and do a ship, you it was still very risky. So they thought, okay, how about we all pool our money and we actually invest in all the ships, and then that way we hedge our bets. And then they thought even better, they said, why don't we create a company? And they actually invented the company we know today. Because before, all of the stock markets were not actually selling stocks, it was all government bonds and things like that. And they said, first company in the world to issue shares, and the first company in the world to have limited liability. Now this is massive. It means you're only on the hook for the money you put in. They changed the whole game. Then they took it one step further. They said anybody in Netherlands could invest in this company. This was the East India trading company, and so then they opened the first stock market where the public could buy and sell shares, and it was brilliant. They went from being a tiny colony of Spain to being one of the richest nations in the world at that time, all because of crowdfunding, all because of the power of opening up the market to the people and finding that through the group is lots of wealth. So let's get back to today. The people want assets. So that's what we're doing. REITIUM is a global real estate investment platform that can allow anyone to compliantly invest in income generating and potentially appreciating properties. We use mobile phone technologies, we use blockchain, and we use the exempt market to allow people to get in, get value, and eventually get out. And I'll explain that in a bit. So why now? Why now are we back at that moment? We're back at that moment because we have 1% of the world owning a lot of assets, 99% of the world not owning so many things. Maybe we're all sitting here feeling like we're back in that time in the Netherlands. What can we do to pool our money to really make an effort? We have crowd consciousness. And this is what I think, when I took that term, we're talking about Uber, we're talking about Airbnb, especially millennials. They're not as, I think the age of the individual is over. I think, we went from the 60s and the flower generation, everyone rebelling. The kids today have very little struggle, right? Gender equality is coming on the rise, sexual equality, all of those things, and they've been able to do whatever they want. You can have this color hair, you can wear tattoos, you can marry whoever you want. So now, I think everyone's coming back to, okay, how do we connect back as a community? I am an individual, I know who I am, but now I want to connect back to the world. And you're seeing it in tech products like Uber, you're seeing it on all these places where people are sharing tools, etc. Second thing is regulations. Canada, United States really went forward and said, with the Jobs Act in America 2012, non-accredited investors can invest in private placements. There are limitations based on income, but this is a huge game changer because before that you could only invest in the public market. What's happening in public stock markets? The only companies that go public, they don't need the money of retail investors, and then companies are going public even later because of the cost of going public, so you don't even make that type of money anymore. So they saw, let's kickstart that. Canada created those rules in 2015, and it's all depending on the province you live and the amount of money you have, you can invest. BC just took this even further. So in Ontario, it's capped at $10,000 a year. In other provinces, it might be $5,000 to $10,000. BC said, as long as you use an offering memorandum, you can raise any money from anyone in the province, and they don't have a cap because they're seeing that this is going to spur innovation. This is going to allow people to get ahead. So when we look at the third thing, and I already mentioned mobile technology, we'll talk about blockchain. So real estate is a transaction business, and I know you all know that, so I'm not going to bore you. What blockchain is, not cryptocurrency, blockchain is an amazing database ledger, right? And so it can take all of the transactions in real estate, people, documents, and rules. And so it can keep those, it's immutable, meaning no one can delete anything, it's constantly auditable, and it's shareable. So it's a very, very powerful way of delivering value and holding value and finding out who owns what, who should do what, etc. So if we go back to the past, this is the world's first share certificate. Piece of paper, right, tells you a few stories. Today, we still have the same paper-style share certificates. Yes, they are digital copies, but the problem is none of these pieces of paper tell a lot of story. This piece of paper can't tell you what the current value of this stock is. It can't tell you any information about what happened during the original investment. It can't even be audited. The future, our digital securities can tell you everything. They can tell you how much is the stock today? How is the company doing? What are the rules around this? Who can I sell it to? How long should I hold it? What are the financials? And when I actually sell this digital certificate to the next person, all of that transfers to the next person immediately. We're talking about a reduction of 90% in legal, accounting, and admin fees. It's very, very powerful. And this is what people have been using in a very small way in the public markets when you're doing rapid stock trades. And we believe this is what's going to revolutionize the private capital markets by bringing down that cost of capital. And when we do that, we'll go from having $25,000 minimum REITs to $100 minimum REITs, because the cost of onboarding that investor is going to be very, very small. So here is just a quick anatomy of the blockchain real estate transaction. So the first thing that we have to do is we have to digitize an investor. So we take them through KYC, we take them through AML, and we give them a digital representation of all that. The next thing we're doing is we're going to digitize the property. All the documents, everything from the property, the title, the appraisal gets digitized and put in one instance in the blockchain database. Once those two things are digitized, they can now transact online, right? And then we do the crowd sale. We create the digital shares. An investor can then invest in that digital share. Because all their information is online, then they're able to actually connect their information to that share. So they literally own, they're encoded into that share that they own it. And no one can change it on the blockchain, not even us. So that's a great way to defend value. After that, they can receive dividends. Again, that's all recorded on the blockchain, all connected back to the individual and to the property. And the data always stays with all of those assets. And so when that person makes appreciation, the value of that share can go up and down, and in real time you can know how much that is worth. And then finally, when they want to sell that share, the person they sell it to, they don't have to know. As long as they've gone through KYC, AML, etc., that is an instant transfer of all the information from one person to another, seamless. And that's the quick anatomy of a transaction. And then now what I'm going to show you is how the platform looks today. So we're going to talk about a marketplace. The first thing is you're going to do KYC. So this is KYC Lite. A lot of times people are having their documents in emails. You just scan them, it's securely stored at IBM. The next thing they can load their wallet. Different payment methods in different countries depending on what the securities regulations are. They can look at the marketplace, Tinder style, swipe through properties if they want very quickly. When they go to look to invest, all the documents are there. You got the limited partnership agreement. If I want to invest, I can just do the investment right on my phone. JG talked about this, mobile first. Fill that in, I can go in, I can sign the document right there. Now my shares are created, right? The next thing I want to do, if I want to sell my shares, I can go in, I can say, what's the discount that I want to sell? How much do I want to sell that order? Someone else can come on, then they can buy those shares anytime. So right now, what we have put into the market is the primary crowdfunding and selling. Our next year and a half goal is to get that secondary market, and that's all to do with different licensing. But we know if individual investors can find liquidity, then it's going to allow them to get in if they know that they have a potential to get out. So when we look at who is inspired, who cares about crowdfunding real estate, we have 10,000 investors on our wait list globally. We can't serve them all. We're starting in Canada. It's simpler, it's easier, and then we're going to go forward. But at least we know that we're not alone. At least we know we've been to 9 countries, 30 conferences last year. This is a global movement of people saying, let's get assets on our personal balance sheet. Let's figure out a way to pool our money and get wealthy together. So then people always say to us, well, why aren't the kids just buying stuff in the public stock market, right? There's REITs, there's all this access. Why aren't you on TD Ameritrade? That's great, but the things that you don't teach you in school, they don't teach you about food or farming or money. So actually, very funnily enough, 1 in 36 American millennials have any exposure to the stock market. And if that's America, you bet other countries it's even worse. Only 1 in 100 millennials even know what a REIT is. I didn't know what a REIT was 2 years ago. Just honestly, I didn't know, right? And so that is what we're facing. None of these companies use social media. None of these companies work with celebrities. None of these companies are running email newsletters or contests or going to concerts or going anywhere that millennials are hanging out. So that is the big opportunity for disruption. We can beat them there. We go to certain conferences and certain people think we invented crowdfunding. We didn't. We're just out here holding the torch and saying this is something that should happen. And I think that is where a lot of these people are going to get disrupted, because the way that the youth are going to move their money, invest their money, do their money is going to change dramatically, and they're going to be looking for that best user experience, that easiest experience, and the people who are digital. So we talk about even the younger youth, the Gen Z. Gen Z is going to be even larger than the millennial generation. You talk about the baby boom. Well, the baby boom had babies who were millennials, who then had babies who were Gen Z, and these are going to be even more. And they're coming up in the next 4 years, and they know nothing about money. They're buying sneakers like it's assets, right? So what we're going to do in the future, we're going to release an ad that teaches kids how to save, lets them save. We're looking to partner with some banks, and then eventually those kids will be able to do investments with their parents under a custody account and allow these guys to start early. Someone who can start if they're 12, 13, 14, maybe by the time they're 25, they have that first down payment. Maybe they come speak and be the youngest speaker at REIN ever. You know, these are the type of dreams that we dream of. But then we bring it down to where are we starting? In Canada, private capital is raised through the exempt market. Now, the exempt market is exempt from prospectus. That means they don't have to go public. This is very important because the cost of going public and that prospectus is way too much to bear for a lot of issuers, a lot of companies. The exempt market is perfect for this, but it has 4 major players. First is the issuers. And anyone who knows lots about the exempt market, sorry to bore you, I'll be very quick, but I just have to paint the picture. They raise capital for their own projects. So we focus on real estate raises, that's what's really hot, and that's what we care about. Then you have the dealers, the exempt market dealers. They raise capital for the issuers through their sales reps, but they also enforce the compliance. They do the due diligence, a little bit of underwriting, and they make sure you follow the rules of who can you sell to, who can you market to, what can you say to them, what documents, what's the process, what happens first, second, last, etc. Then you have the dealer reps. These guys are the workhorses. These are the people who bring the revenue, and on top of that, they're commission-based and they sell directly to investors, but on top of that, they are also a compliance enforcing mechanism. When you meet a DR in person, they're supposed to figure out, is this person suitable? Is this person sane? Is this person who they say they are? And they're that check. And this is like, I call the Victorian England bureaucratic system of using people in those mechanisms. I think as we go to the future, a lot of this stuff is going to go more online. There's going to be AI, etc. Like what I've seen, and we study a lot of AI. Today, people say you get on a phone, you say, "Can I speak to a human?" In 20 years, you're going to say, "Can I please just speak to a computer?" And that's how efficient the computer is going to be. And it's funny and scary, but I think the idea is when you're looking for just basic help, that's good. But what these reps also do is they provide advice. There's a knowledge gap between someone who's trying to invest and someone who's on the other side. And so it's very, very powerful. So what we're doing is providing the technology to let these groups do their best work, not the admin. So the private investment industry is super inefficient. When we look at this, we're looking at manual workflows. It takes 1.5 hours to process the paperwork to onboard one investor. So you're so happy you brought an investor on, and now you're just watching all of your profits dwindle as you work on admin for yourself. It's pretty depressing. I've seen it firsthand, and I know there's a better way. The next thing is segmented workflows. When you're on a team and you're selling across the United States and Canada, 40 people, 4 leads, 10 silos, all these people are working on individual PowerPoints, they're working on individual Excels. No one knows what's happening with a deal at any point in time until the deal closes or until they have a Friday meeting. It's completely inefficient. I've never seen anything like it before. The last thing is then that real-time tracking. If you have 40 customers out there and they're all doing their Know Your Customer onboarding forms, some of them are in subscription process, some of them in payment, some of them being onboarded to the portal, all of that is in emails. And then on top of that, people are sending bank wire information and identities through emails. So you have 5,000 emails with all of your customers' IDs and this and that. That's very unsecure, very inefficient. And then you have limited reach. Because of this whole burden of the way the whole system works, people just only get licensed in certain geographies, and it's harder and harder to syndicate more widely. But we have a solution. We've worked for a year and a half to bring REITIUM, amazing technologies, but it's quite lonely when you're trying to blaze a path. And this is why we love coming to REIN, because when we saw Richard Dolan the first time at REIN, he was talking about the future of real estate. We said, okay, these guys are on to something here, just like us. This is our community. But then we looked at the exempt market and we saw, okay, something has to happen here to let everybody go forward. So today we're announcing Exemptium. So Exemptium is the white label solution where we're going to give the industry the technology that REITIUM is powered by to allow them to power their businesses, bring down the cost of capital, and raise the entire private capital markets in Canada to the future. Our first client is Triview Capital. We're going to be onboarding their 50 dealer reps, and actually Cynthia Asen, who is a REIN member, and Taylor Steele, they're amazing, they're visionary, especially Cynthia. You know, she worked in the stock markets, she saw what that was like, and she sees that happening, that technological revolution happening in the private capital markets. We're so proud of them to have taken their company and go through that digital transformation. So this is what it looks like inside their office when they actually go through. There's tons of paperwork, and you know, they have an amazing team who's like really working hard to get this done, but it's unnecessary. So we take their 14-page PDF and we digitize it. And so we actually are able to then take this PDF and make it a digital form, right? And that digital form is trackable on every single click. So when you have 50 people out there who are all going through their onboarding, you know where the person got stuck, you know what they're on, and so you only follow up with the people and you're like, hey, okay, I see you're on page 2, rather than being like, hey, have you filled the form? Did you get the form? You know, and none of those phone calls exist anymore. We're looking at 10 plus hours a week saving. So here I'm going to show you what it looks like on mobile, because I saw JG and he said mobile first, and so we also are mobile first. So this is what that PDF looks like. Digital form, it's interactive. We can go through. What I like about this is, on top of that, I'm going to show you how we can actually do tooltips. This form will print to the PDF when the person is done, right? And this form can also be collaborated on real time. So if you're on the phone with your agent, you have a question, they can jump on their desktop version and fill the form in time with you as well, right? So if people get stuck, this is one of the biggest things. So we put 300 people through the REITIUM platform, everyone gets stuck. What does my net worth mean, right? Well, what is a politically exposed person? And so here what you can do is you can actually add a tooltip. So you can say, what type of KYC, what's the question, you can add the answer, and then here when they're actually on the thing, they can look at it, they can pull up the tooltip, oh, that's what a politically exposed person is. Contact support, it pops up a chat window right away, and you can chat with someone. We're trying to reduce unnecessary phone calls, the hours of time spent, so that people can get to relationship building, education, and sales. So we look at issuers. As I told you, that those PDFs and those Excel documents that are being brought together every week, no real-time tracking, what we do is we track the investor's activity from onboarding to subscription to payment right to one dashboard. So here, if you can see on this screen, here, James Bond sold 2.5 million. Elton John's a beast, he sold 3.5 million. The USA rep, REIN, REITIUM, you can break it down by individual deal, and then you can see what's closed and what's committed. And that's based on real actionable data and real time. Now you can make more insights. If you're dividing your deal among all these sales reps, you can give them allotments. If somebody's filled up their allotment, you can send the allotment somewhere else. What's happening, what we've seen in the industry, is you're out there selling your client an investment. You put them in all the paperwork. Okay, you're in for 100K. 2 days later, it comes back, the deal's full. Now that's a terrible user experience. You've lost faith, you've lost trust. Now, in real time, when you go to put that deal in, you'll know if there's space in the deal for your client. You'll know if that client can get in, and you'll be able to have that certainty, and you'll be able to execute, and you won't have to even come back. You go on to the next sale. So for the investors, we thought about how can we give them that full system and then get to portfolio tracking. Real-time portfolio tracking, all their reporting, all their docs in a digital, web, and mobile format. And this is the final place where then they can decide what they want to do next. So eventually when they can actually liquidate or when they can add more RSPs, we give them that full understanding, and then on top of that, again, they can quickly chat with their agent within the platform at any time. So that's a quick thing on REITIUM. Vision is to help more people to get into real estate and to do that through crowdfunding. Exemptium to serve private capital markets of Canada and eventually the world, to bring everyone up to that level. The dream, owning global real estate, we're on it. And we know that lots more people are willing and able, and so we're gonna keep the good fight. Raising that capital from the global investor crowd. Once we have more dealers, agents, issuers using digital technologies like us, and not just us, you know, there are some other people out there and we want the whole thing to come up, then we're gonna be able to get to a level where this can happen more frequently. And it's not just this planet, right? We talked about, you know, going all across the earth in that history lesson I gave you. We're looking to the future. You know, humans are gonna be on Mars, and we wanna be there, and we wanna sell that. So thank you guys very much.
We need your microphone on so that we can hear what you're about to say.
I was turned on. Give me a handheld. Something's wrong. So loud when I get. So Michael Moll, ladies and gentlemen, one more time for him, please. You know, as I bring my granddaughter up and we think about the future of real estate, you wonder what our children in 20 years from now, as a 3-year-old, how they will be looking at real estate. How the industry will change and why it's so important for us as real estate investors to look into the future, to really understand that things are changing. The power of being in this room, of course, is that we're always looking into the future. We surround ourselves with individuals like Michael, like Jennifer Hunt, who's doing the research, in order for us to understand clearly what's coming. So whether you like the idea of REITIUM, whether you consider it something to look at as an investment or share with others, it's to have an awareness around it. I always go back to one fundamental as real estate investors, as potential joint venture partners, being ahead of the curve and understanding what the future holds is what impresses joint venture partners. Okay, so I have no idea what's next. You are big, by the way. Yeah, you are. Okay, so where are we at? We're going to head to a break. Do we have some break announcements? Okay, guest track. So do you want to fill in here, Jennifer